Hello everyone, welcome back to Totally Unbiased. My name is Adam and today we are talking about Disney villains. Everyone knows them. It is a mainstay of almost every Disney movie, and to be honest, some of these villains have become some of the most iconic characters in all of cinema. But today they are going head to head to see which Disney villain was the most successful in their evil plan. But if I was going to compare every single Disney villain in one long movie, that would take forever. So I am not going to do that. If you don't know, Disney movies have been separated into eras over the last 80 years or so, and today we are only going to be tackling the first era, which is the Golden Era. This era consists of 5 movies, and they are Snow White, Pinocchio, Bambi, Dumbo, and Fantasia. All right, let's dive into it. Which Golden Era Disney villain was the most successful? First up to bat is Snow White, and man, I have not seen this movie in a really long time, probably since I was around like 5 or 6 or so. So I basically only remember like the super major plot points, and even some of those are kind of fuzzy on me. But the first thing that I can tell this movie is, yeah, it is really old. So the villain of this movie is the Queen, which also just so happens to be Snow White, our main character's aunt. So every villain needs an end game, a goal that they want to accomplish. So what was the Queen's goal? She wanted to be the hottest one in the kingdom, and she couldn't because a magic mirror told her that her niece was hotter. So already off to a very Disney start. So what was this wise queen's conclusion of her goal? She is to kill her niece. All right. So how does she go about doing this? Well, first she tells one of her huntsman royal guard people to take her niece for flower picking. And while they are out there, he is supposed to kill her, take her heart, put it into a box, and give it back to the queen. That's messed up. So that plan goes south. So logically, she does the next best thing. She uses magic to turn herself into an old lady, creates a magic poison apple, and gives it to Snow White for her to eat to then die. She also made a note to say that the only cure for this is true love's first kiss. And she's out with the dwarves right now, so we know that relationship ain't working out. But I would like to point out that literally the same day that she concocts this plan, she sees a prince flirting with Snow White. So kind of a little fault there. But it's all good because the dwarves ain't kissing her. To her credit, she does actually kill Snow White for around a year. But yes, you heard that right, a year. There are title cards in the movie to prove it. During this whole poison apple stuff, it looks kind of like summer. It's really nice out. And then the first title card in the movie shows winter, and the second one shows spring. By the time the action really gets going again, it's summer again. That is a whole year that Snow White was dead. Back to the Queen's plan, she never really gets to become the fairest of them all. Yes, she kills Snow White, but she doesn't get to turn back into her queenly form before she dies. Now, I would like to go on a quick tangent real fast, because the way the Queen dies is truly spectacular. So she runs away from the dwarves in the rain that all of a sudden spontaneously started up a mountain. And while she's up on the mountain, she tries to kill all the dwarves with this giant rock. But lightning strikes the mountain, she falls off the mountain, presumably dead right there, but then the giant rock falls on her, and then vultures come down to eat whatever's left. That is fantastic. So in the end, the only thing the Queen really has going for her is that she killed Snow White for over a year, but in the end, the creepy prince comes by and wakes her up with a kiss anyway. So did she succeed? No, she did not. But you gotta give her some credit because she did almost accomplish her goal for kinda over a year, but she did die the second she accomplished it. But there is one last thing I would like to point out. Once Snow White dies, the dwarfs keep her in a glass coffin in the middle of the forest for once again a whole year. Why? Because she was too pretty to bury. Yes, that is also in the movie. That is messed up. But yeah, that's Snow White's villain. Pretty meh overall, but like I said, you gotta give her some credit for the whole dead for a year thing. On to the next one. So next on the list is Pinocchio, and once again, I've not seen this movie for a very long time. Seriously, as I was watching this movie, I didn't remember like anything that was going on. Like the whole whale plot. Why was the whale there? It just showed up at the very end of the movie and was intimidating for no reason. I'm not gonna lie, that last bit with the whale, that was probably my favorite part of the movie. So, not gonna worry about it too much. Not gonna worry about it. Villains in this movie are kind of weird. Technically, there's almost 4 groups of villains slash antagonists. The first ones we meet are Honest John and Gideon. Shortly after that, we meet Stromboli, the puppet man. Third, we have a guy who's only named as Coachman and Pleasure Island. And finally, we have that awesome whale, Monstro. One of those villains I like way more than the rest, but we will get there when we get there. It kind of felt like this movie was trying to tell like 4 different stories at once, but that is besides the point. We are here to talk about villains. I'm briefly going to talk about 3 of the villains and then really go in depth into the 4th one. Now the 3 are not going to count towards the ranking at the end of the video, and the 4th one will. So here we go. First up is Honest John and Gideon. So their whole goal was to sell Pinocchio to Stromboli to make money, and then they sold him again to the coachman to also make money. So I mean, they succeeded twice, which is, I guess, good for them. But I never really considered these guys actual villains. They just kind of were there to move the plot along to get Pinocchio into these different scenarios, so not villains. Next up is Stromboli, the puppet man. So his whole idea was to use Pinocchio in his puppet show to travel around, make a bunch of money, and keep Pinocchio captive. Which, he did once until Pinocchio ran away. But, once again, not really a villain, wasn't very successful, moving on. The last villain I want to talk briefly about is Monstro, the whale, which I must say, awesome name. Once again, Monstro, why are you there? It was the most random thing ever. Like, Geppetto, dude, come on. Why? Pinocchio was gone for a day. There's no reason to go get eaten by the whale. But honestly, this whale was just here to pad out time at the end of the movie and make it really exciting, which it worked, so I'm not going to complain about it too much. But once again, not really a villain, just there to pad out the ending. Last and easily the best villain in Pinocchio is the coachman. And I'm not going to lie, this guy is probably the front runner right now for the most successful Disney villain in all of Disney movies. Let me explain. So this guy's whole idea is to take all these misbehaving boys, ship them off to Pleasure Island for a super fun night of partying and drinking and smoking, then turn them into donkeys and then sell them into slavery. First off, super dark. And secondly, he succeeds. In most Disney movies, at the end of the movie, the villain is either stopped or killed in some way. Like, the audience knows that these guys, whichever villain it is, are not going to continue on to do whatever they've been doing throughout the whole movie. That is not the case in this movie. I'm going to paint you a picture of how this all goes down at the end of the whole Pleasure Island arc of this movie. So Jiminy Cricket figures out that all the boys are being turned into donkeys and being sold off into the whole slavery thing, so he sprints back to go tell Pinocchio what's going on, and then they escape and they get out of there. That's it. They don't stop the donkey people. They don't hinder them in any way. They get to just keep doing exactly what they've been doing for who knows however many years, and that's it. Honestly, they probably don't even realize that Pinocchio's gone. Now, we don't really know much about these guys besides what I've said so far, but as villains, I really like them. They easily made the biggest impact on me from this entire movie. The fact that we don't know anything about them is scary. What they are doing is scary. And the fact that we don't stop them is also really scary. Now, the coachman isn't going to win any award or Oscar for the best antagonist in a movie, but successful-wise, were they successful? Yes. Yes, they were. Like, stupidly successful. Third on this list is Fantasia. This movie does not have any villains in it. This is a series of music videos. Now, there was that demon guy who was all spooky and stuff, but he didn't have any desires or wants or anything like that. So no villains in this movie. Moving on. Fourth on our list is Dumbo. And who would have thought? I have not seen this movie in an incredibly long time. Dumbo is also a strange one on our villains list because I would also say that there really isn't a villain in this movie. Now I'll dive more into it, but there just isn't really anyone I would consider a villain. Now the only ones that are even close to be considered a villain are the elephants besides Dumbo's mom, the ringmaster guy, and the crows, but that's really it, and I wouldn't really consider any of those guys villains. Let's start with the ringmaster guy. So this character and this whole movie really shows the difference in culture from way back in the 40s to right now, because now the general consensus is that a lot of people feel bad for these animals that are in the circus that have to do all these tricks and live in cages and stuff like that when they should be in their natural habitat. But at no point in this movie did Dumbo not want to be part of the circus. Like, yeah, he was sad that the ringmaster made him a clown and doing all these crazy stunts, but once he learned how to fly, he didn't fly away from the circus. He went right back into the circus. Like, he wanted to be a part of it. I mean, yes, the ringmaster is a jerk, but Dumbo wanted to please the ringmaster. This guy is definitely not a villain. Next up are the clowns. Now, these guys are also not villains. Yeah, they were mean to Dumbo, unjustly so, but they were just doing what they thought was best for the show. One of the clowns even said that they shouldn't hurt Dumbo. Yes, they are jerks to him, but they are definitely not villains. Next are the elephants. Now, they were making fun of him because he has giant ears, and they were mad at him because he ruined their fancy elephant stacking show, but that was really it. They aren't actively trying to hurt or ruin Dumbo. They just want him to, stay away and do his own thing. Just jerks, not villains. Lastly are the crows. Now, all these guys did was make fun of Dumbo, like every other character in this movie, but in the end, they helped him learn to fly and become super successful in the circus. Once again, just jerks, not villains. This movie puts me in a weird spot on this list. Like, there are a lot of characters who are almost villains, but just not quite. But I gotta say, there are no villains in this movie. Moving on. My broken record continues on the last movie in our journey through the golden age of Disney with Bambi. And I have once again not seen this movie in a really long time, and I remember like none of it besides, spoiler alert, the mom dies. Throughout the majority of this movie, I was kind of in a similar position with Dumbo for Bambi, mainly because I didn't really think of any character so far in the movie with the villain. Like, the first one we see is the hunter that kills Bambi's mom, but I didn't really think of him as a villain either, instead of more just an obstacle for Bambi to overcome. Like, he was there and then he wasn't. Like, if I was going to judge this guy on his success, he'd be overwhelmingly the most successful Disney villain in the entire Disney franchise just because he did exactly what he wanted to do. He showed up, killed Bambi's mom, and then he was gone. Then we get an anime-style time skip when all the animals are big and grown up now, and they all find animal ladies to fall in love with. So when it's Bambi's turn to find a lady, he does, but he has to fight off this rival deer for the lady deer's heart. So I kind of moved on and thought maybe this guy was going to be the villain, but it just didn't really sit right with me. Enter the return of the hunters. So yes, the hunters come back for a second time in this movie, and man, these guys are some of the worst people to ever exist. So they show up to this forest and they just start wrecking the place. They're not just going for deer, they're going for the birds, the squirrels, the rabbits. Nothing is safe from these hunters, and they just start wrecking everything. During this attempted slaughter, the fire that they left going at their campsite spreads and the entire forest catches on fire. Like, how idiotic and inhumane can you be? So how successful were these hunters? I mean, their goal was to kill a bunch of animals in this forest, and they were successful. They did get a few, but probably not as much as they wanted. I was originally going to compare these guys to the bad guys in Pinocchio, like the coachman and Pleasure Island and stuff, because they can just leave and come back and do it again. But then I remembered the fire. With this horrible fire and destruction of the forest, either these hunters are not going to come back because they think the forest is too destroyed and none of the animals will be there, or they get arrested for arson. Like, seriously, that fire was huge. There is no way they are getting away with that. Were they successful? kinda. I mean, they killed some woodland creatures, but not nearly as many as they actually wanted to. And they're also not coming back because they probably got arrested. So that is it for the golden age of Disney movies. It is finally time to officially rank these suckers. In at number 5 is Fantasia, because once again, no villains here, no surprises, no worries, moving on. Number 4 is Dumbo. Now I did say that there's basically no villains in this entire movie, but it is higher on the list than Fantasia because at least there were some characters that were mean to the main character that actually made him sad. Number 3 on the list is the Queen from Snow White. Her goal was to become the fairest of them all and had to kill Snow White to do it, which she did accomplish, but she never truly accomplished her goal because she wanted to be the fairest of them all, and she had to turn into that ugly lady with the poison apple to do it, and she wasn't able to turn back into the queen to become the fairest of them all before she died in the most bombastic fashion ever. So successful, halfway, not really, never really accomplished her goal. Number 2 on this list are the hunters from Bambi. Now they were able to kill Bambi's mom and a bunch of other woodland creatures, so they were technically able to accomplish their goal, just not to the same degree that they wanted to. And they're definitely not coming back again to finish that goal because they got arrested. Now I know the whole arrested thing isn't, canon in the movie or anything like that, but I mean, come on. They burned down a forest, or the majority of a forest, they're getting arrested. Number 1 on this list, and no surprises for guessing, is the Coachman. Like I said, this guy and his group are easily the front runners for the most successful Disney villain in all of Disney movies, mainly because they were not stopped. Now this guy's goal was to bring in the boys, turn them into donkeys, sell them into slavery, and Pinocchio did escape, yes, but none of the other boys did, and nothing is stopping them from continuing to do this for, the rest of however long they want to. So yes, in the golden age of Disney movies, the Coachman from Pinocchio is easily the most successful Disney villain. So that is it for the list of the most successful Disney villains in the golden age. Now, like I said, there are several ages of Disney movies throughout the last 80 years. And if you want me to do the same exact thing for the other Disney villain eras, let me know. I will take that bullet and watch a bunch of good Disney movies for you guys. I will do it for you. It's going to be really tough. Like I said, that is it. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you really liked it, and I will see you guys in the future.